All right, it's time to start the presentation. Here in the Netherlands, it's 1 o'clock. I see some different people from different countries with probably different time schemes. Of course, in Iceland, it's an hour earlier, so it's 12 o'clock for the presentators that are coming later on. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us for this CSRD Roadshow webinar about manufacturing this time. I'm happy to welcome you in the name of the NVDO, of course, and the IFNMS and Sdu, who jointly organized this webinar. And I have a few household announcements beforehand. If there are any questions, we will have two presentations, and after both of those presentations, we have some time to answer those questions. Feel free to put them in the chat in the meantime, but we will come back to them at the end of the presentations, and then there is some time and room to open up your microphone, put on your camera if you want to. As you can see, the webinar is being recorded as well and will be described afterwards. So we will send you the link and the document, I think about tomorrow, so that you can read back and watch back the webinar in your own time if there's some things you missed, or maybe you want to check it once more. And there's nothing else for me to do right at this moment than to introduce you to Chantal de Groot from SDU, who will start this presentation about the CSRD.
Yes, thank you, Ian. Well, welcome all. Today I will tell you something more about the CSRD, the basics of it, but also the opportunities of the CSRD. In the next following 20 minutes, I will take you on an ESG journey. So let's start. First, I will introduce myself a little bit more and SDU in short, and then I will tell you something more about some topics within the CSRD, the materiality analysis, but also the data gathering part and the opportunities that the CSRD will also bring. First, our team. I also added Esther van Doesburg and Janine Heemskerk. They will not be joining us today, but they host the live CSRD Roadshow events that we organize with NVDO in Holland. And I will take my part for the webinar and the international CSRD story. Okay, who are we? Small talk about SDU. We are located in The Hague in the Netherlands, and we have around 300 employees. We are part of a family company, Lefebvre Sarru. So our headquarters is based in Paris, and we are active in 8 countries in Europe and have around 2,600 employees in total. Within the group, we have 2 focus areas, ESG and AI. And in the future, the near future, I hope that 2 will be combined also. But it's not that time yet. Today, I will tell you more about the ESG part. Our group mission is to make knowledge available for a more and fairer and efficient and sustainable society. So that's also why we are active in ESG and CSRD, and which makes us, I think, an interesting international partner to collaborate with. Let's dive into CSRD. Where does this all come from? First of all, I want to point out ESG as a theme. ESG is the framework that focuses on the social governance and environmental aspects of an organization. So this concept derived from the triple bottom line that is, I think, more known by people, planet, and profit. So before I tell you more about the CSRD, I want to start with ESG because this is the overarching theme. And this is important to know because the reporting standards are classified upon this framework. So that's why it's very important. E is about environmental issues, so the climate, which is the main priority. S is the social part, which is about your stakeholders internally, but also externally. And the governance part is about the legal and administration teams. But I will tell you more about this later on. But I think it's important to know what ESG holds. ESG is the overarching theme, but where does the CSRD come from? Well, this picture clarifies it. And at the same time, it shows the complexity and the quantity of the European legislation at the moment. And I can assure you there's much more to come. Down on the left, in a small piece of cake, you will see the CSRD. But what this landscape has in common is one word, and that's sustainability. And if you understand that sustainability is the core of all this, then your focus actually has to be on how to incorporate sustainability into your business strategy. So that's the question that I want to drop here today. What is your focus with your organization is going to be? Determine your sustainability strategy and then use the CSRD as a guide for that incorporation. As you can see, the CSRD is a legislation that is part of the transparency plan, which is related at the Green Deal. So that's where this comes from. Very good to know in relation to the awareness of why the EU has created this directive. So transparency goes along with the responsibility and the ownership. These are some other sustainability goals or initiatives that are formally or better known maybe. So the GRI, the IFRS, that are all related initiatives to the CSRD. Okay, let's dive into the CSRD. What does it mean? It stands for the Corporate Sustainability Reporting Directive. The directive aims to ensure greater transparency about a better quality of sustainability information. So I just show you in the regulatory slide that this is an EU initiative, and that means that all EU countries have to follow this new legislation. Small disclaimer. It's also possible for countries to introduce stricter regulations. France is a good example of that. We know that because our headquarters is based in Paris. All the involved countries have to have the chance to adjust the directive with stricter regulations or integrate the directive as is. So the deadline is around June or July this year, I think. The CSRD will be an annual report and you have to deliver the data digitally and it will be publicly disclosed. This last remark is important for the realization on what the effect will be on the value chain later on. It can include or exclude you from the value chain and that's exactly one of the most important reasons why the CSRD is established. It brings back the responsibility to the companies, and because of the pressure and the transparency in the value chain that will rise, hopefully you make more sustainable choices. Of course, the other reason is achieving the goal to become carbon neutral in 2050. The report that you will deliver will be audited by your accountant based on limited assurance. The CSRD contains several disclosure requirements that we see here. I will not get into every topic today because I don't think that's relevant and that's way too much information. But I will tell you something more about the European Sustainability Reporting Framework. So the ESRS, the framework which you have to report on. So the CSRD is the directive and the ESRS is the framework or tell you what to do. I will tell you something more about the double materiality and something about the performance metrics, I think, because that's, I think, the most relevant part for you and your field of work. Well, after the main disclosurements, well, we can make some more concrete steps. These are the main steps of implementing the CSRD. So you have the general disclosure. So you have to follow step 1 to 5, so plan of action until the strategy and targets. Then you have the implementation part. So that means that you have to do zero measurements. You have to gather the data. And that's, I think, a very important role also for maintenance and asset managers. And then you have the actual reporting part. But first, who will be impacted? The total amount of companies that have to report on this new directive is around 50,000. But there are stages for when it's your company's turn to report. So first, this year we start with large European listed companies. Next year, the second group has to report. Well, which group is this? This is based on the following criteria. So you have to have more than 250 employees. The balance sheets are greater than 25 million. And you have to have a turnover of more than 50 million. If you tick 2 out of 3 of these boxes, then you are in this group and you have to report over the year in 2025. In 2026, the directive will apply to the SMEs with more than 250 employees. In the ESRS framework, we saw that there also will become a slimmed version for smaller companies. That's also on the way. So this roadmap is just the beginning. What is very important to realize is the value chain that I've mentioned earlier on. So if you are a small company and your clients or your suppliers are obligated to report in the next following years, then you will have to take into account that they will come up with sustainability and emission questions about products and services that you deliver to them. So, for example, what your carbon footprint is of this footprint. But they will ask you something about material of passports of your products and services, of bill of materials. This is the data that they need to gather within the value chain and which they need to report on. That's also better known as Scope 3 in the CSRD. So this means that even though you're not obligated to report right away, that there's still a big chance that you will be a CSRD involved in the next couple of years or months. Okay, the ESRS. The ESRS stands for the European Sustainability Reporting Standard. And this is, like I said, the framework on which the CSRD is built on. As you can see, this framework contains different parts. We have the already published standards known as the cross-cutting standards. And this is divided in the ESRS 1 and 2. On this part, everyone has to report on. So these standards are relevant for every organization. Then you will have the sector agnostic standards. This is where you find the ESG classification. So the environment, social and governance classification that I told you about. At the right side of this framework, you can also see that the framework is not completely finished yet, like I told also in the earlier slides. There are also some sector-specific standards coming later on. I believe 2026. And the slimmed version for the smaller companies is also something that is to be expected later on, 2027 or 2028, I believe. On which ESG teams your company reports on, that depends on the outcome of your materiality analysis. But what is double materiality? It's one of the most important steps within the general disclosures, the double materiality. And because of the complexity of it, I will explain a little bit more about what this is. Basically, it says that you have to clarify the impact that you have with your company on people and the environment. Also known as the inside-out impact. But you also have to report on the financial impact that the environment can have on your organization. And this is the outside-in impact. So it works both ways, and that's why it's called double materiality. As you can see, there are some examples. So the inside out is about waste management or diversity in your own workforce. And the outside in effect can also be, running out of raw materials for manufacturing, or the war that's in Ukraine and Russia at the moment. So that all includes or has something to do or has an impact on your, can have an impact on your organization. These are the main steps that you have to follow in the process of determining your double materiality. And it's very important to follow these steps because your accountant will validate the process. You will add the CSRD report to your annual reporting, and therefore the accountant will have the responsibility in this process to validate your CSRD report. Where to start? Well, where to start is creating a long list of potentially material ESG issues. So how do you do that? Well, this is the long list that you have to take into account and which topics can be relevant. So you have to determine which are relevant for us, and that will be determined with internal stakeholders, but also with your customers and suppliers. I also told you something about the data gathering part. That is also very important, and I will point out this today because I think that's where a lot of questions will receive you in your field of work. The data collection for companies is essential for tracking, measuring, and reporting on environmental, social, and governance factors. So it enables companies to analyze their performance, it set goals, making informed decisions, and enhances transparency. You also have I told you something about scope 3. So you within the CSRD, you have scope 1, 2, and 3. Scope 1 enhances direct greenhouse gas emissions from owned or controlled sources. Scope 2 is indirect, are the indirect emissions from the generation of the purchased electricity, heat, or steam. And scope 3 are other indirect emissions, such as those from the value chain, so including suppliers, customers, and product life cycles. Well, why do companies have to gather this data? Well, it enhances accountability and transparency in reporting practices. It enables identification of risks and opportunities for sustainable growth. It also helps you to build trust among stakeholders and investors, and it will help you to support compliance with regulations and standards. So your approach within the CSRD can be divided in 3 parts. So you have the organization part, the knowledge and process part, and roadmap and actions. This is the way to start. First of all, you have to determine who is responsible for what on all levels. So you have to start with a project team. And I think that contains a lot of the roles and functions that you see here. So CEO from sustainability manager, if you already have that, maybe you will hire a sustainability manager. But also asset managers, HR managers and auditors are very important for your internal stakeholder project team. Another important topic is the knowledge and the process. You have to get to know the CSRD by joining, well, you can do that by joining workshops like this one, training with a complete team, and because it's very important to speak the same CSRD language to collaborate. Otherwise, it's, well, I think not possible to come up with a good report. And another big part of it is the roadmap and the actions you have to follow. So the plan of action, the determine your stakeholder, so the main disclosure and requirements of the CSRD framework, so the ESRS framework. Now that you know something more about the basics of the CSRD, I want to point out another important matter, because at the beginning of my presentation, I dropped a question: what's your sustainability strategy gonna be? And the reason that I did that is because that regulatory landscape that I showed you, there's more to come than just the CSRD. I think a lot of companies will also get involved with the CSRD or CBAM or other regulations. So of course you can choose just to be compliant as a company, but you can also choose to use the CSRD as a guideline to incorporate sustainability into your business strategy. We at SDU believe that sustainability is the new currency. What means as much that is as if you incorporate sustainability in your company strategy, you will secure your company existence but also your profitability. So I think that's something to take into account. To determine your sustainability strategy, you can use this sustainability ladder. 0 is ignoring. Well, that's a door that's closed because of the CSRD. We are obligated now to report on sustainability issues. And step 5 can be a purpose-driven organization. So it helps you to determine where you're at right now, but also to set your goal. If you know what your strategy will be, you can make choices regards the way you want to implement the CSRD. You choose for compliancy, and you want just to focus on how you can make this an efficient process for your organization. But if you choose for sustainable leadership or purpose-driven organization, then your focus, besides the efficiency, will also be on change management and how you can implement sustainability in the core of your business, but also in the employees. Your strategy will definitely become your lifeline. So whatever strategy you choose, what you will definitely lead is insight, because you need overview to help you manage this comprehensive implementation project. So think about training and education, but you also need some tooling and software maybe. All of the mentioned is something that we can provide. And if you want to know more about these products or more about training or education, don't hesitate to call me.
Thank you, Chantal, for this overview of the CSRD. Before we go to the next presentation of Landsvirkjun, are there any questions before going over to the next presentation? Are there any uncertainties, unclarities about the CSRD before we dive a little bit deeper in the material? I don't see anything in the chat. All right, then I
sharing my screen.
Would ask Gardar to share his presentation with us, because he will start. Yes, we have something in the screen.
You have something? Okay.
Yes, there we go. I will give the word to Gardar, who will then give the word to his colleagues a little bit later on in the presentation, and they will tell you all about Landsvirkjun and their asset management, their way to CSRD, and their way to becoming carbon neutral in 2030, I believe, Gardar. Do I say that right?
Yeah, I believe so. Or
It's
even
2025.
earlier. 25.
2025 already. All
Yeah.
right. There we go.
Okay, thank you. Ian, my name is Garðar and I am asset management specialist at Landsvirkjun. I have been working with Landsvirkjun for 5 years now. Before that, I was working in the aluminium industry for more than 10 years in the field of asset maintenance and operational management. I am board member of the Icelandic National Maintenance Society, EVS, and I am also a member of the European Asset Management Committee within EFNMS. I'm going to introduce you to Landsvirkjun in general and how we approach asset management. Sigrún and Maria will then take over and talk about climate action, sustainability, EU legislation, and more. They will introduce themselves. Landsvirkjun is an energy company owned by the people of Iceland, and we generate electricity from renewable energy sources, that is hydropower, geothermal, and wind power. The company was established in 1965, and we generate over 70% of the electricity in Iceland. The carbon footprint is extremely low. Landsvirkjun is a company, not a public institution, with independent finances and accounts and an independent board of directors appointed by the Minister of Economics and Finance. And the economic advantages from the energy generation is distributed throughout the country. This is our corporate strategy. Our vision is a sustainable world powered by renewable energy. Our role is to maximize the value of the renewable energy resources we have been entrusted with in a sustainable and efficient manner. And our values are progressiveness, prudence, and reliability. For the next couple of years, we have clear and measurable goals. We want to grow our renewable power production by 10% by 2027. We want to take our first wind park into operation by 2026. We want to become 100% carbon neutral company by 2025. And we want to actualize the first e-fuel production in Iceland by 2025. This is a picture of our organizational chart, and it is designed to support our strategy. We have 2 operational divisions, hydropower and wind and geothermal power. Then we have other divisions to support the energy production and to execute our strategy. I myself belong to Asset Management, Maintenance and Construction Division. Sigrún belongs to Community and Environment Division, and Maria belongs to the Corporate Office. As an island in the middle of Atlantic Ocean, we are in a unique position. We are isolated and completely on our own, with no connections to the mainland. In Iceland, all the electricity is green. 74% is hydropower, 26% is geothermal, and less than 1% is wind power at the moment. At Landsvirkjun, we see huge opportunities within the wind power, and we are already working on some projects in that field. There is no lack of wind in Iceland. We just need to harness it. It is proven that hydro and wind can work well together in tandem. Low season in wind are high seasons in hydro and the opposite. This is an overview of the Icelandic power market. Landsvirkjun is a major player within the generation part, as mentioned before, with 70% market share. Landsnet is responsible for the transmission and few other companies do the distribution. power-intensive users are using around 75% of the total energy. Those users are international companies like aluminium smelters, iron ore plants, and data centers, for instance. And then we have the 25% of the energy going to wholesale, household, and SME. Here is a system diagram from Landsnet showing the transmission system. The total power in the system is around 2,850 megawatts. Landsvirkjun has 5 production areas with total 19 power plants marked with circles on the map. The system today is fully loaded and pretty sensitive to interference. Therefore, reliability and uptime of each power plant in Iceland is extremely important. On top of that, there is demand for more electricity in Iceland. This is a summary of Landsvirkjun, all the power plants in age order. Blue squares shows the hydro plants, red squares are the geothermal plants, and the green square is wind power. As said before, we have 19 power plants in total. The oldest plant is from 1937, and the youngest plant is from 2018. Here's a picture of Búrfell, one of our most critical plants. And like you see now, the winter is cold in Iceland. Okay, to be able to manage all these power plants, we have a strong asset management system in place, where the goal is to ensure that our assets will be able to perform their functions during its expected lifetime. Continuous improvements of operations and maintenance management is a key aspect of asset management as it affects life cycle cost, production capacity, reliability, and risk management. We use ISO 55000 series as reference, but we do not have a certification though yet. But we are looking into that, how far we can go into that standard. Our main focus regards to asset management is analyzing equipment life cycle, sustainability, health and safety, continuous improvement, reliability-centered maintenance, and capital investments on existing assets. This is our maintenance organization chart, typical chart, I guess. We want to plan and schedule all our work to be a couple of steps ahead. We have learned that reliability-centered maintenance is the best method to maximize the efficiency of the program. The maintenance program is continuously being reviewed, and we use metrics to measure the performance. And we are always focusing on increasing the ratio of condition-based maintenance. By using CPM, condition-based maintenance, more, we expect to detect failures at the correct time, minimize unnecessary stops by measuring the equipment conditions while in operation. We expect to shorten plant stops, and we expect to only repair or replace equipment that is starting to fail. And this will lead us to increased reliability and lower maintenance cost. With regards to bigger maintenance renovation projects, we execute up to 200 CapEx projects a year for existing assets. We have a pipeline of potential projects that have been defined. Then we use value analysis to prioritize, looking at the impact on environment, impact on safety, impact on asset lifetime, and also operational risk. All this work is based on asset life cycle analysis. This process does not include, though, new constructions. That is a different portfolio. To meet increased energy demand in Iceland, we have now 4 new big construction projects in progress. 3 projects in the south operational area, which is our biggest field. Hvammur, new 95 megawatt hydropower plant. Power plant number 8 in a row that is using the same river. Then we have Búrfell wind farm, our first big wind farm with up to 30 wind turbines and total of 120 megawatts. designed to work in tandem with the hydro plants at the area. Then we have on the south coast Sigalda, 15 megawatt expansion of existing hydropower plants. And in the north part we have Þeistareykir, 55 megawatt expansion of existing geothermal power plant. So there are not a lot of projects going on at Landsvirkjun, and we are clearly looking at the future, and we want to help the world to be greener. I think this is the last slide from me. Sigrún, you can take over now.
Yeah, thank you, Garðar. Hi all, I'm Sigrún. I'm a specialist in the Department of Climate and Green Solutions. I've been with Landsvirkjun for nearly 2 years, and I'm gonna go over Landsvirkjun climate action. I need to take control. Garðar, can you grant me the control, please?
Yes. Okay.
Okay, I think I have it, yes. So as Garðar mentioned before, Landsvirkjun vision is a sustainable world powered by renewable energy. We have an ambitious climate and environmental policy that guides us. We intend to achieve carbon neutrality, and we actively participate in the global response to climate change. We systematically work towards reducing our carbon emissions, and we support Iceland's commitment to the Paris Agreement. We work in the nature, so we have to respect the Icelandic landscape and natural environment, and we continually strive to optimize the use of resources and prevent waste. We safeguard biodiversity guided by an ecosystem-based approach. And we place emphasis on understanding and minimizing the environmental impact of our operations, and in that way preventing environmental incidents. Okay. As I mentioned, we have a carbon neutrality target for 2025, and here we can see the trajectory of the carbon intensity of each sold kilowatt hour. It has decreased by 81% since 2005, and a part of our action plan towards this is to reduce emissions from geothermal operations, but also stop purchasing fossil fuels by 2030, and that target is actually well underway. And most importantly, there is the energy transition of vehicles and equipment. We have clear actions and priorities in our action plan. Firstly, it's to prevent emissions. We just simply want to prevent the emissions from happening. Secondly, if we cannot prevent the emissions from happening, we want to reduce them, to minimize them as much as possible. And lastly, we use mitigation measures. So we have clear prioritization in the action plan. We see here, renewable energy is key in solutions to climate issues, and Landsvirkjun's contribution to climate change mitigation is considerable. The average emissions of average greenhouse gas emissions from electricity generation globally is 440 grams CO2 equivalents per kilowatt hour. The EU taxonomy criteria for sustainable electricity generation, or to mitigate climate change, is 100 grams, and Landsvirkjun's emissions are only 3.3 grams, which is amongst the lowest globally. And the International Energy Agency has put forward a clear analysis of what is needed to do for the world to become carbon neutral by 2050. And one of the key elements there is that the energy generation from renewable sources needs to 8-fold by 2050. And Landsvirkjun is proud to be an active participant in reaching that. So Landsvirkjun scored A for climate strategy and the impact of climate change on operations in 2023 by the international non-profit organization CDP. That's the second consecutive year that Landsvirkjun is awarded top scores. And the A score puts Landsvirkjun on a leadership level in climate action worldwide. And CDP assesses climate matters holistically by encouraging organizations to disclose information related to their carbon actions. And this involves comprehensive evaluations of various aspects, such as the company's governance, or climate-related policies, and if the company has a clear board-level oversight of these matters, disclosure of how we identify, assess, and manage climate-related risks, how we integrate sustainability into our business strategy, our performance towards reaching the targets that we have set, and it also assesses how we address climate matters within our supply chains. We're very proud of being on the A list, and our CDP submissions provides a very good basis for the CSRD work, particularly with the ESRS standard, which is connected to climate change. So it's been very helpful in that as well. We rely on several methods to get us where we want to be with our climate goals. We have clear targets and action plan that follows. We have an internal dashboard where we have the live data with our emissions. So we continuously measure them day to day. So if we buy diesel for the cars, it appears in the live dashboard, and we can then use that data for informed decision making and intervene if we see that we're going off track. So like these measurements are only useful if they lead to better decisions, which is what we aim to use them to do. And since 2008, Landsvirkjun has successfully used carbon pricing as an instrument to reduce its carbon footprint. And I'll tell you a little bit more about how that is used. So we calculate the internal carbon footprint to make informed decisions on greenhouse gas emissions from our operations. So carbon pricing puts a price tag on each ton of emissions, and it discloses our willingness to pay to reduce emissions. So for example, in tenders, we ask bidders to include emissions estimates with the offers. This would cover fossil fuels, steel, and cement. We then use the internal carbon price to evaluate the offers. That is, we factor the GHG emissions or maybe the future cost of emissions into the decision. We then, the contractors then get the bidding. They provide emissions data during the construction. So we ask them to provide estimates before they get the project, but when they are working on it, we also make sure that they provide the data so we can see if they're under or over the estimate. And we provide financial incentives if they're under the initial emission estimate, and penalty if they are over the initial estimate. We're not putting any hard restrictions on the bidders. We're simply encouraging them to reduce their GHG emissions and providing them with a financial incentive to do so. Finally, I just wanted to mention that Landsvirkjun is on the Financial Times list of companies across Europe that have shown the highest emissions intensity reduction from 2016 to 2021. And the criteria evaluate direct and indirect emissions from energy use, the emissions intensity in relation to revenues. Our CDP score, the A-list score, is also a part of the evaluation criteria. And so based on that, Landsvirkjun is considered a climate leader, which we are very proud of. I hope to have given you like a bit of insight into our climate actions. These are my last words, and I'll give the word over to Maria now. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. I am also going to ask to get control of the slides. Please, Garðar. Sure if it works. Garðar, have you granted me the controls or? Yeah, there we go. Okay, hi all, my name is Maria and I'm a project manager in sustainability at Landsvirkjun. My main topics are just regarding sustainability in general, the implementation of EU legislation, for example, the CSRD and the EU taxonomy at the moment. And I also kind of go into internal policies and just the overall strategy as well. And I've been with Landsvirkjun for almost 2 years now, so about the same time as Sigrun. I'm just going to talk a little bit about, we have a certification from a protocol called HAP, which is Hydro Sustainability Assessment Protocol. I think today it's called Hydro Sustainability Standard. It has changed a little bit, but we have this certification for 2 of our hydropower stations, Blanda and Fljótsdalur, which is one is located in the north and the other one in the east. And this kind of assesses the operation from different perspectives, all related to sustainability. So in the environmental area, and the social as well as the governance. I just want to highlight the one here on the right-hand side, which is in orange, which kind of covers assets and maintenance. And as you can see, we scored a 5, which is the highest one. So they actually scored our asset management as being as to a best standard, so best quality for these hydropower stations. The standard I talked about earlier, the hydropower sustainability standard, which was kind of which is now being implemented to hydropower power plants. You can actually assess that in 3 different stages. So you can either get a certification from just the design of it in the construction phase and as well as in the operational phases. So you get you can go from just the design board over to operation. So you get a certification for each and every step. We haven't done that yet, but we plan to go through this standard, at least in the operational stage. I think maybe Hvammur, which Garðar mentioned earlier, as at least they took into consideration the requirements in the design. And Garðar also briefly mentioned our corporate strategy. And to maybe just a highlight, to support that strategy, we have several internal policies. And we have gone through extensive renewal of these policies in the last 2 years, as well as our employee code of conduct and our supplier code of conduct. And maybe just to highlight in the supplier code of conduct, which also kind of relates to our maintenance, we have their requirements related to human rights, to labor rights, and stuff like that. So we're kind of considering our value chain in that retrospect. Okay. Either my computer is extremely slow, or do you see my slides? So there's nothing happening.
You're on the slide with the CSRD, and now the next one.
Okay, that's not. Yeah, that's not the slide I'm seeing. So, so maybe I'll just go back one. So you should now be seeing just a big picture, right?
Yeah, you need to go back one more then.
I'm sorry about that. So you're hopefully seeing it in real time, but I'm not seeing what I'm presenting.
We see the slide of the CSRD.
Okay, let's just go there then and start there. Okay, I'm just going to go briefly over how we did approach the implementation of our CSRD, and maybe just a little bit around the ESRS, so the European reporting standards. So in the beginning, in Iceland, maybe just as a little bit of backstory, in Iceland we haven't implemented CSRD into Icelandic law yet. There was some kind of hold up, some delay, so we don't know at the moment when it will become a legal requirement in Iceland. Iceland is not part of the European Union, so everything that we can implement into Icelandic legislation has to go through the European trade thing. I don't know what's called. It's like a contract between European countries which are not part of the European Union. And Norway is, for example, a country like Iceland in that respect. So, but we decided anyway to go ahead and start our process doing the double materiality assessment, being well aware that we are a big company in Iceland and that the legislation, the implementation of the legislation is pending anyway. So, and we kind of realized that the timeline for this would probably be longer than we would expect in the beginning. And that actually turned out to be completely right, because for the double materiality assessment, we kind of decided, had planned a 3-month timeline, which now is up to 5 months, and it's not completed yet. So we're still counting. So it takes a little bit more time than you would expect in the first place, I think. And we also quickly saw that this was something new, something that we haven't done before. So we decided to get outside counseling as well. Someone who had actually done this before and kind of could guide us through that. So now, hopefully I've changed slides and you will see something that I don't see, probably 2 persons walking. Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
Let's see. And then what we did, we put up like a steering committee within the company, which has the project manager of the implementation and also directors from different departments. So one from environment, one from the community, one from the procurement, as well as a member from the legal team to cover the governance part of it. Then we had a working group containing of me as a project manager and Sigrun as well, which spoke here earlier, which is a specialist, and we kind of facilitated the work together. Then we had like core teams regarding each and every topical standard. So we had like specialists in water, specialists in climate, and in HR coming together and doing like an assessment from their specialty. So we had like 10 different core teams as well. And with that, we kind of thought that we would get like a good cross-disciplinary collaboration between all the employees. So we got like we have specialists and persons from each and every department within the company. And in the beginning, just before we started the actual work, we did like a stakeholder mapping. We had an older one, which we based the new one on. So we had like defined stakeholder groups, and we did like just a reassessment of that, as well as extensive value chain mapping with our procurement experts. And that kind of also guided us through the scoring as well. And we also gathered amounts of data, especially for the consultancy, to help us and to help them assess the materiality of things, so just that they could get to know the company better. Before we actually started the workshops, we did like an onboarding webinar for all the participants, just to familiarize them with the topic. Why are we doing this? Why are we facilitating this project? And what to be expected from the workshops. So what their role in the project is as well. And then we held several workshops. I think there were 12 or 13 altogether, one for each topical standard, one for financial, one for risk. And yeah, we kind of gathered people from all of the company. It took several days. So it was really extensive, a few days. And in the workshops, we focused on putting together a scoring matrix, and scoring matrix that would actually represent Landsvirkjun and our core operations. So the main goal was to create something that you could get like a genuine materiality from. So because of course, as we said, we work with water. We work with water both in geothermal and hydro, and it was really important for us that the scoring keys would represent both sides, because water that runs through a hydropower plant and water that goes to geothermal is not the same resource. So we had to, tweak the scoring keys to fit our company profile. And then the consultants did the draft assessment. So they assessed the subtopics and the subtopics from each standard. And then we got it back for review and went through the core team as well. They reviewed every single assessment, and the review process took a little bit of time. We had meetings, back-to-back meetings with the specialists just to go over and make sure that everything was correct. And we are still finalizing that with both the executive board and our specialists at the moment. So that's why we don't show any results. But we are also in the process of finalizing our data gap assessment, which is based on the materiality assessment. And that, in my opinion, that is the most important thing. So that's where you get the gaps. That's where you kind of see where your focus should be for the next projects. So where you need to kind of gather your resources into maybe creating action plans, creating or adjusting strategies or policies or anything like that. So I think the data gap assessment is a key element in the double materiality assessment. Okay, and then a little bit about our taxonomy work as well. We have been working in the last few months as well as doing the data, the double materiality assessment. We've been working on completing our first EU taxonomy non-financial disclosure. So that's the first year in Iceland that companies have to report on that in their financial statement. And if you don't know what the taxonomy is about, it's a directive that was put forward in order to better define what is considered to be environmentally sustainable operation. And the goal is to direct funding towards that kind of operation. And in Iceland, all larger corporations and every public interest entities are subject to disclose non-financial information. And this is a part of that part of the annual accounts. And of course, while directing funding towards more environmentally friendly operations, the purpose is also to kind of to counter greenwashing. So it makes companies more compatible. So you're actually comparing oranges and oranges, not apples and oranges. So you get the real. You can just go to the financial statement, look at the information, and you compare what is the best option for you as an investor, for example. So in the beginning, we had to define if any of our core operations was actually eligible to be a part of the EU taxonomy, and it most certainly is. We have all of our core operations, electric generation from wind power, hydropower, and geothermal energy is eligible according to the taxonomy. And we had to, as Sigrun mentioned briefly earlier, we had to make sure that we had a substantial contribution towards one of the 6 environmental objectives defined in the legislation. And Sigrun mentioned our very low score of carbon emissions, 3.3 grams, and that's our substantial contribution towards climate change mitigation. But as well as doing that, we also had to make sure that there are 5 other environmental objectives that we have to prove that we do no significant harm to with our operations. And those are listed here. So it's the climate change adaptation, sustainable use and protection of water and marine resources, transitions to a circular economy, pollution prevention and control, and then protection and restoration of biodiversity and ecosystems. So they have like technical screening criteria for each and every one related to our operations, and we have to make sure that we fulfill every requirement within that criteria. As well as fulfilling all of these, we also have to comply to minimum safeguards regarding human rights and governance. And we actually had another consultancy do like analysis on that for us, and we consider us to be compliant after that. Once you have considered what is eligible and that you that your operation is aligned to the environmental objectives and the criteria listed there, you can then take this information and kind of think of there are key KPIs that you can report on. So you have the percentage of revenue, percentage of CapEx, and percentage of OpEx that is compliant to the EU taxonomy. And we haven't actually published our annual accounts. That's due next week. So I can't really show you the numbers, but I can show you a little bit and tell you a little bit about what is included in each and every one. So now you should see a slide that says key performance indicator revenue for, yeah, exactly, great. And there you can see that 99.8% of our revenues are eligible according to taxonomy. So almost all our revenue. And in our income is tied to renewable energy generation. And that includes the guarantees of origin and risk hedges. There might be some other types of income that does not fall under the EU taxonomy. That's mostly due to like rent of certain premises or something like that. But it's a very little part. And then you have the next indicator, which is the CapEx. And there I can't tell you the percentage because we haven't published that yet, but that covers direct investments in the new power stations, all capitalized investments for power station that are refurbished or capitalized preparation costs. It also excludes investments that involve buying and selling assets other than power stations. So, for example, offices and stuff like that. And preparation costs for power stations that are not likely to be up for construction within the next 5 years. So we have like this 5-year barrier. So everything that we're planning in 10 years, the preparation cost for that is not included. And then the last one, the operational cost, which I think is the most interesting one because that took us the most amount of time just to get through and what is included and what is not. Everything that is included in this indicator and is taxonomy aligned is linked to direct maintenance and operational costs for power stations, electricity transmission, research and development, and facility cleaning costs. So our asset management and all our operations is included in this. What is not included is, however, depreciation and impairment, employee wages, and other operational expenses. Perhaps there are some part of the employee wages that could be considered eligible or aligned, but we decided to at least kind of focus on financial materiality at this point. But it might be in the following years we can link some of the at least the maintenance cost to the wages as well. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that this was my last slide.
All right, thank you, Maria, and thanks once again also to Sigrun and Gardar for your presentation. We are running a little bit late, and I see some people need to leave already before the webinar is over. Are there any short questions for the team at Landsvirkjun to discuss before ending this webinar? Gert, I see a hand there.
Yeah. First of all, it's very impressive how far you people are with going green. The question that I have is, you want to be carbon neutral by 2025. How do you handle then all the stuff that you have to purchase for executing the projects, like the windmills, all the concrete for buildings, and all that kind of stuff? I can imagine that you have all your operational emissions more or less under control, but how do you compensate for the stuff that you need to buy?
Actually, as of now, I'll take the question. Thank you. As of now, in our scope 3 emissions, we haven't included the construction projects, which is the steel cement. We do include the fossil fuel and waste from construction, but we know from our LCAs that the steel and cement are the biggest causes of emissions. But as of now, we haven't found a way to include it, so our target is not including that.
No, but what I heard and what I find pretty interesting is that you ask your suppliers and your constructors to come up with an indication of what they expect to have on emissions, and that you actually have a financial incentive to motivate them to stay within that limit. I mean, that's quite interesting. So,
it has. Yeah, it's been very interesting, and I think it could be a great incentive for them, for example, to change out old machinery that isn't efficient or something, or maybe change into electric vehicles or electric equipment. So I hope we're providing a good incentive to do that.
Yeah. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Right, thank you. If there are no other questions, Elmar says in the chat, no questions, but very impressive and inspirational to see how you implement asset management and the green goals that you have. Thank you for the presentation. Curious in your goals with the wind farms. So thanks to all. Thanks Chantal, Sigrun, Gardar, Maria. Thank you for the presentations, and I will hereby close off the webinar. And if there are any people that have questions, you saw the contact information on the last slide. So we can be contacted if there's any more questions. And retrospect as well as the link to the webinar will follow shortly. Thanks once again. Have a nice day all, and who knows, till next time.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.